Jack Monroe wiped the grease off his hands and sighed as he surveyed the mess in his workshop. It had been a long day of repairs, and he was ready to close up for the night. The sun had set hours ago, and the only light in the workshop came from the dim, flickering bulbs hanging from the ceiling. He glanced at the old-fashioned clock on the wall. 11:45 p.m. Another long day in the books. Jack was a man of routine. After finishing up for the day, he'd usually pour himself a glass of whiskey, sit on his porch, and gaze up at the stars. Ever since he was a kid, he had been fascinated by the night sky, imagining the countless worlds out there, each with its own mysteries and adventures. But despite his dreams, Jack had never left New Nevada, the remote colony where he was born and raised. New Nevada wasn't much to speak of, just a dusty little settlement on the edge of the known galaxy. It was a place where people came to escape, to start over, or simply to be left alone. For Jack, it was home. He had inherited the workshop from his father, who had inherited it from his father before him. The Monroe family had been fixing things for generations, and Jack was proud to carry on the tradition. As he reached for the light switch to close up for the night, a sudden bright flash of light lit up the sky outside. Jack froze, his hand hovering over the switch. The light was unlike anything he had ever seen. Brilliant, white, and pulsating. It filled the entire workshop with a strange, otherworldly glow. "What in the world?" Jack muttered, walking to the window. He looked out and saw the source of the light, a sleek silver object descending from the sky, moving with a grace that defied the laws of physics. The object hummed with a low, resonant frequency that Jack could feel vibrating in his bones. His heart raced as the object touched down in the clearing just outside his workshop. The light dimmed slightly, but the ship still glowed softly in the darkness, like a beacon from another world. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. Was it a government experiment? A rogue spacecraft? Or could it be something else? Before he could even begin to process what was happening, a panel on the side of the ship slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a doorway. A ramp extended to the ground, and 3 figures emerged from the ship, their silhouettes illuminated by the soft, ambient light from within. As the figures stepped into the light, Jack's breath caught in his throat. They were women, tall, elegant, and otherworldly in their appearance. Their skin was a shimmering shade of blue, almost iridescent in the moonlight. They moved with a fluid grace, as if they were gliding rather than walking. Their eyes, large and almond-shaped, glowed faintly with a pale light, giving them an ethereal, almost hypnotic quality. Jack stood rooted to the spot as the women approached him. His mind struggled to comprehend what he was seeing, but deep down he knew. These were no ordinary visitors. They were aliens. The leader of the group, a woman with a regal bearing and silver markings on her skin, stepped forward. She wore a suit made of a material Jack had never seen before, smooth and metallic, yet flexible and form-fitting. Her voice, when she spoke, was melodic, carrying a strange resonance that seemed to echo in Jack's mind. "Are you the mechanic?" she asked, her tone calm and authoritative. Jack swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. Yeah, that's me, Jack Monroe. What can I do for you?" "Our ship has malfunctioned," the leader explained, gesturing back toward the sleek vessel behind them. "We were on our way to a diplomatic conference on Mars, but something went wrong with the energy core. We need your help to repair it." Jack blinked, trying to make sense of the situation. He had spent his life fixing all sorts of machines, but this was something entirely different. The ship looked more like a work of art than a machine, and the technology was beyond anything he had ever encountered. But there was a challenge in her voice, a challenge that Jack couldn't ignore. I'll do my best," Jack stammered, grabbing his toolbox. His hands trembled slightly, but he forced himself to focus. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, and he wasn't about to let it slip through his fingers. As he approached the ship, the alien women stepped aside, allowing him to pass. The leader followed closely behind him, her presence both comforting and intimidating. The door to the ship was still open, revealing an interior that glowed with a soft, pulsating light. The inside of the ship was even more astonishing than the outside. The walls were smooth and seamless, with no visible panels or controls. Strange glowing symbols floated in the air, shifting and changing as Jack approached. The ship hummed with a low, resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate through his entire body. "This is the energy core," the leader said, leading him to the center of the room. In the middle of the chamber was a large crystalline structure that pulsed with an erratic, unstable light. Sparks of energy crackled along its surface, causing the ship to shudder slightly with each pulse. Jack stared at the core, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The technology was completely alien, but he could see that something was wrong. The energy was fluctuating wildly, causing the entire system to destabilize. He could feel the heat radiating from the core, and he knew that if it wasn't fixed soon, it could lead to a catastrophic failure. "Looks like there's a flux in the energy flow," Jack muttered to himself, kneeling down to examine the base of the core. He could see conduits running from the core to the walls of the chamber, each one glowing with a different intensity. "If I can reroute the power through these conduits here." He pulled out a diagnostic tool from his toolbox and began scanning the conduits. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen, but he could see the patterns, the way the energy flowed, the way it fluctuated, the way it was causing the system to destabilize. He felt a strange sense of clarity, as if the ship was speaking to him, guiding him to the solution. The alien women watched in silence as Jack worked. Their expressions were unreadable, but he could feel their eyes on him, their intense focus. He could feel the weight of their expectations, but instead of feeling intimidated, it gave him a sense of purpose. After what felt like hours, Jack finally managed to stabilize the core. The pulsation slowed and became steady, and the ship stopped shaking. The glow from the core softened, becoming a smooth, steady light. "There," Jack said, wiping sweat from his brow. "That should do it." The leader of the women stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was cool and soothing, and Jack felt a wave of calm wash over him. "You have done well, Jack Monroe," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You have saved our ship." Jack smiled, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. "Just doing my job." The leader nodded, her eyes glowing softly. "You have done more than just fix our ship. You have proven yourself to be a skilled and resourceful mechanic. For that, we are grateful." Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest at her words. He had never been one for accolades, but there was something about the way she spoke, the way she looked at him, that made him feel special. As he packed up his tools and prepared to leave the ship, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than himself. The encounter had sparked a curiosity in him, a desire to know more about these mysterious women and the incredible technology they possessed. But for now, he was content with the knowledge that he had done his part. He had fixed the ship, and in doing so, he had opened a door to a world of possibilities he had never imagined. As he stepped out of the ship and into the cool night air, Jack looked up at the stars with a new sense of wonder. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he was truly a part of it. The cool night air greeted Jack as he stepped out of the alien ship, but his mind was still buzzing with the sights, sounds, and sensations of what he had just experienced. He had just saved an alien ship from a catastrophic failure, but even more astonishing was the fact that he had done it. The technology was beyond anything he could have imagined, yet it had felt strangely intuitive, as though the ship itself had guided him. The leader of the alien women, who had introduced herself as Lyra, stepped out behind him. Her presence was calming, her movements fluid and graceful. Jack had always been a man of logic and reason, but there was something about these women that made him question everything he thought he knew. They were alien, yes, but there was a familiarity in the way they carried themselves, a sense of shared purpose that Jack couldn't quite place. As Jack stood there, lost in thought, Lyra approached him. Her eyes, still glowing softly in the darkness, met his. "You did well, Jack. Our ship is stable, thanks to you." Jack felt a flush of pride, but also a sense of curiosity. "I still don't understand how I was able to do it. Your technology, it's like nothing I've ever seen. How did I know what to do?" Lyra smiled, a faint expression that made her seem more human, despite her otherworldly appearance. Our technology is designed to be intuitive. It responds to the intent and understanding of those who interact with it. You have a natural affinity for machines, Jack. Your mind was able to connect with the ship, to understand its needs. In a way, you didn't just fix it, you communicated with it. Jack stared at her, trying to wrap his mind around what she was saying. Communicated with it? You mean the ship is alive? Not in the way you understand life, Lyra explained, but it is a sentient construct. It has awareness, a consciousness of sorts. It understands its purpose and it seeks to fulfill it. When something goes wrong, it tries to communicate its needs to those who can help. You were able to hear its call, and you responded. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. He had always thought of machines as tools, as things to be used and fixed. The idea that a machine could have awareness, could communicate its needs, was both fascinating and unsettling. "How is that even possible?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra looked up at the ship, her expression thoughtful. "Our technology is far more advanced than what you are used to, Jack. We have learned to harness the power of thought and intention, to create machines that can interact with us on a deeper level. It is not magic, but science. Science that has been developed over millennia. Your world is still young, but you have great potential. You were able to connect with the ship because you are open to new possibilities, because you have the mind of a creator." Jack didn't know what to say. He had spent his life fixing things, but this was something entirely different. He had always seen himself as a small cog in a much larger machine, but now he was beginning to understand that he was capable of much more. "Is that why you came here?" he asked after a moment. "Because you knew I could help?" Lyra shook her head. "No, our arrival here was accidental. Our ship encountered a spatial anomaly, something we had not anticipated. It caused a malfunction in our energy core, and we were forced to make an emergency landing. We did not know we would find you, but we are grateful that we did." Jack felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that he had been able to help, but also a sense of unease. If their arrival was accidental, what else could be out there beyond the stars? What other dangers and wonders awaited? Lyra seemed to sense his thoughts. "The universe is vast, Jack, and filled with both beauty and danger. There are forces at work that even we do not fully understand. But there is also hope and the potential for great things. You have already proven that." Jack nodded, but his mind was still racing. He had so many questions, so many things he wanted to know. But before he could speak, the other two alien women emerged from the ship. They moved with the same grace as Lyra, their expressions serene. "The ship is fully stabilized," one of them said, her voice as melodic as Lyra's. "We are ready to resume our journey." Lyra turned to Jack. "We must leave soon, but before we go, there is something else we must do. You have helped us, and we are bound by our customs to repay that debt." Jack blinked, caught off guard. "Repay? You don't owe me anything. I was just doing what I could to help." Lyra's expression softened. "You may see it that way, but to us it is more than that. You have given us your time and your skill, and we must honor that. There is something we can offer you, something that will change your life." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what to expect, but the way Lyra spoke, the seriousness in her tone, made him realize that this was no ordinary reward. "What do you mean?" Lyra stepped closer, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "We come from a world where knowledge and power are intertwined. Our people have developed abilities that go beyond what you understand as technology. These abilities are not just tools. They are extensions of our very being. We can offer you one of these gifts, a gift that will unlock new potential within you." Jack's breath caught in his throat. "A gift? What kind of gift?" Lyra gestured toward the ship, and as she did, a section of the wall shifted and opened, revealing a small chamber within. Inside, 3 orbs floated in the air, each one glowing with a different light. One emerald green, one sapphire blue, and one fiery red. "These are the gifts of Illyra," Lyra explained, her voice reverent. "Each one holds a different power, a different path. The green orb will grant you the ability to heal, to mend both machines and living beings with a touch. The blue orb will enhance your perception, allowing you to see and understand things beyond the ordinary. The red orb will give you strength, both physical and mental, to overcome any challenge. Jack stared at the orbs, mesmerized by the soft, pulsating light they emitted. He could feel the energy radiating from them, each one calling to him in a different way. This was more than just a reward. This was a life-altering decision. "Choose one, Jack," Lyra said gently. "But choose wisely. Each gift will change your life in ways you cannot yet imagine." Jack hesitated, his mind racing. Each orb offered something extraordinary, something that could elevate him beyond anything he had ever known. The power to heal, to perceive, to strengthen. It was a decision that would shape the rest of his life. He reached out tentatively, his hand hovering over the orbs. The green one pulsed gently, promising the ability to heal and bring life back to broken things. The red one seemed to vibrate with power, a strength that could make him unstoppable. But it was the blue orb that drew him in the most. Its soft, sapphire glow seemed to speak to him, to resonate with something deep within his soul. The promise of enhanced perception, of understanding the world in ways he had never thought possible, was too alluring to resist. Taking a deep breath, Jack reached out and touched the blue orb. As soon as his fingers made contact, the orb dissolved into a fine mist that surrounded him, enveloping him in a cool, tingling sensation. He felt a surge of energy, a rush of clarity as his mind expanded, taking in new information, new sensations. It was as if the world around him had suddenly become more vivid, more alive. Lyra watched him with a knowing smile. "You have chosen well, Jack. The gift of perception will serve you in ways you cannot yet imagine. You will see the world with new eyes, understand things that were once hidden. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Use your gift wisely, and it will guide you to greatness." Jack nodded, still reeling from the experience. He could already feel the difference, the way his mind seemed to buzz with new insights, new possibilities. The world around him seemed sharper, more defined, as if he were seeing it for the first time. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with awe. "I don't know what to say." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light and reassuring. "You do not need to say anything. The gift is yours now, and it will be with you always. But remember, Jack, this is just the beginning. Your journey is far from over." With those words, Lyra stepped back, and the other two women moved to join her. They exchanged a few words in a language Jack didn't understand, and then they turned back to him. "We must go now," Lyra said, her tone regretful. "But know that we will be watching, from the stars. If ever you need us, if ever you find yourself lost or in need of guidance, we will be there." Jack nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "I understand. Thank you for everything." Lyra smiled one last time, and then she and the other women turned and walked back toward the ship. The ramp retracted, and the door slid closed behind them with a soft hiss. Jack watched as the ship began to hum with energy, the lights along its surface glowing brighter as it prepared to take off. As the ship slowly ascended into the night sky, Jack stood there, staring up at the stars. The ship's light grew fainter and fainter until it was just a distant glimmer, and then it was gone, leaving him alone in the darkness. But Jack didn't feel alone. He felt a sense of connection, of purpose, that he had never felt before. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries, but now he had the means to explore them, to understand them in ways he had never thought possible. As he turned and walked back toward his workshop, Jack couldn't help but smile. His life had changed forever, and he was ready for whatever came next. The morning sun cast long shadows across New Nevada as Jack Monroe woke up, feeling more refreshed than he had in years. The events of the previous night seemed like a dream, an encounter with alien beings, the repair of an otherworldly ship, and the gift of enhanced perception. Yet, as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes, the world around him appeared different, sharper, clearer, as if a veil had been lifted. Jack sat up in bed, his senses alive in a way they had never been before. He could hear the faintest rustle of leaves outside, the soft hum of the power generator down the street, even the distant chirp of birds. Every sound, every detail of his surroundings was suddenly vivid, vibrant, and alive. The world had never seemed so real. He stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the familiar landscape of New Nevada. The dusty streets, the old buildings, the barren hills in the distance. It was all the same, yet profoundly different. He could see the texture of the wood in the buildings, the individual grains of sand in the street, the intricate patterns of veins in the leaves of the sparse trees. The colors were richer, more intense, as if he were seeing them for the first time. Jack's mind buzzed with new insights, new understandings. He could feel the flow of energy in the electrical lines, the subtle vibrations of the machinery throughout the town. It was as if the world had opened up to him, revealing its secrets, its inner workings, in ways he had never imagined. He knew he had to test his newfound abilities to see just what this gift from the alien women could do. His workshop was the perfect place for that, filled with machines and gadgets of all kinds, each one a potential puzzle waiting to be solved. As Jack made his way to the workshop, he noticed the people of New Nevada starting their day. Normally, he would have just given them a nod or a quick greeting, but today he could sense something more. He could feel their emotions, their thoughts, not in a literal sense, but as a subtle undercurrent that colored their words and actions. The baker, who always seemed cheerful, had an underlying sadness, a longing for something lost. The old man who ran the general store was worried, his thoughts clouded with concerns about the future. Even the children playing in the street had a mix of joy and anxiety, the innocence of youth tinged with the uncertainties of growing up. Jack shook his head, trying to focus. It was overwhelming, this flood of information, but he knew he had to learn to control it, to filter it, so that it didn't consume him. Finally, he reached his workshop, the familiar smell of oil and metal greeting him as he opened the door. The place was a mess, as usual. Tools scattered across the workbenches, half-finished projects piled up in the corners. But today, it felt like a treasure trove, a playground where he could explore the full extent of his new abilities. He approached an old hover bike that had been sitting in the corner for weeks, waiting for a part that had never arrived. Normally, he would have spent hours diagnosing the problem, taking it apart piece by piece to figure out what was wrong. But now, as he placed his hand on the bike, he could feel the energy coursing through it, the flow of power from the engine to the propulsion system. He could sense where the connections were faulty, where the energy was leaking, where the systems were out of sync. Without even thinking, Jack grabbed his tools and began to work. His hands moved with a speed and precision that surprised even him. Every bolt, every wire, every component seemed to fall into place effortlessly, as if the bike were guiding him, showing him exactly what needed to be done. Within minutes, the bike was back together, humming softly as he powered it up. Jack grinned, feeling a surge of satisfaction. The hover bike, which had been a challenge before, was now as simple as fixing a toaster. But it wasn't just the machines. As Jack worked, he found that his mind was clearer, more focused. Ideas flowed freely, and problems that had once seemed complex now appeared straightforward, with solutions presenting themselves almost immediately. It was as if his brain had been upgraded, tuned to a higher frequency that allowed him to see patterns and connections that had always been there but just out of reach. Over the next few days, word began to spread about Jack's newfound abilities. People from all over New Nevada and even beyond came to his workshop, bringing machines that no one else could fix, problems that no one else could solve. Jack handled them all with ease, his reputation growing with each success. He became known as the miracle mechanic, the man who could fix anything. But it wasn't just the machines. Jack's enhanced perception allowed him to connect with people in ways he never had before. He could sense their needs, their desires, their unspoken fears and hopes. He found himself giving advice, offering comfort, and helping people in ways that went far beyond repairing machines. He became a confidant, a counselor, a friend to those who came to him. One evening, after a particularly long day, Jack was sitting in his workshop, reflecting on everything that had happened since the alien women had visited. He had never sought fame or recognition, but now he was at the center of a small whirlwind, with people relying on him in ways he had never expected. As he sat there, lost in thought, he sensed a familiar presence. He looked up and saw Lyra standing in the doorway, her glowing eyes watching him with a mixture of pride and something else, something deeper. "Lyra," Jack said, standing up, "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." Lyra smiled, stepping into the workshop. "I told you we would be watching, Jack. We are pleased with how you've used the gift we gave you. You have brought hope and healing to your people." Jack shrugged, feeling a bit self-conscious. "I'm just doing what I can, but it's been a lot. This gift, it's more than I ever imagined." Lyra nodded, her expression understanding. "With great power comes great responsibility, as I told you. But you have handled it well. You are learning to balance the power with compassion, to use it not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of others." Jack felt a warmth in his chest at her words. "I've tried, but there's still so much I don't understand. About the gift, about you, about everything." Lyra's eyes softened and she stepped closer. "You are on a journey, Jack, one that will take you far beyond what you know. The gift we gave you is only the beginning. There are other worlds, other challenges, and other opportunities waiting for you. You have the potential to do great things, not just here, but across the stars." Jack's heart raced at the thought. "Are you saying there's more out there for me?" Lyra smiled, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of something like affection in her gaze. "Yes, Jack, much more. We came to you because we saw that potential in you. You have proven yourself worthy, and now we offer you a choice." Jack swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. "What kind of choice?" Lyra reached out and gently touched his arm. "You can stay here, continue to use your gift to help the people of New Nevada, or you can come with us, explore the stars, and use your abilities on a much larger scale. The choice is yours." Jack felt a rush of conflicting emotions. New Nevada was his home, the place he had always known, but the thought of leaving, of exploring the unknown, of using his abilities to make a difference on a cosmic scale, it was exhilarating, terrifying, and deeply tempting. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's so much to consider." Lyra nodded, her expression compassionate. "Take your time, Jack. This is not a decision to be made lightly, but know that whatever you choose, we will support you." Jack nodded, his mind racing. He looked around his workshop, at the familiar tools, the machines, the signs of the life he had built. But then he looked at Lyra, at the doorway that seemed to lead to endless possibilities, and he felt a pull, a yearning for something more. "Thank you," he said, finally meeting Lyra's gaze. "I'll think about it." Lyra smiled and stepped back toward the doorway. "We'll be in touch, Jack. When you're ready, just call out to us and we'll come." With that, she turned and walked out into the night, disappearing into the darkness as silently as she had arrived. Jack stood there for a long time, staring at the spot where she had been, his mind filled with thoughts of the future. He knew that whatever he decided, his life would never be the same. The gift had changed him, opened up a world of possibilities that he had never dreamed of. Now, it was up to him to decide how to use it, where to go, and what kind of person he wanted to be. As he turned back to his workbench, Jack felt a strange sense of peace. The choice was his, and whatever he decided, he knew that he was ready for the next step in his journey, wherever it might lead. Jack Monroe spent the next few days in a state of restless contemplation. The decision that lay before him was monumental, and he felt the weight of it pressing down on him every waking moment. The routine tasks of his daily life, fixing machines, helping his neighbors, tinkering with gadgets, suddenly seemed trivial in comparison to the vast possibilities that Lyra had presented to him. He tried to go about his business as usual, but everything felt different. The world he had known all his life was now a small corner of a much larger universe, a universe that was beckoning him to explore it. The people of New Nevada, though dear to him, seemed content with their lives, unaware of the wonders and dangers that existed just beyond their reach. Jack felt a growing sense of disconnect, as if he were caught between two worlds, one he knew and one he had only glimpsed. His enhanced perception, the gift from the alien women, only deepened this feeling. He could sense the currents of life around him in ways he never had before: the hum of machinery, the flicker of electrical signals, the subtle shifts in people's emotions. It was as if he were tuning into a frequency that no one else could hear, a constant reminder of the potential that lay within him. But with that potential came a responsibility, a call to something greater than the life he had always known. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack found himself standing on the porch of his workshop, staring up at the stars. They twinkled like diamonds against the velvet sky, each one a distant sun, a potential world, a new adventure waiting to be discovered. He had spent his whole life gazing at those stars, dreaming of what lay beyond them. Now, for the first time, the dream felt within reach. As he stood there, lost in thought, the quiet rustle of footsteps behind him caught his attention. He turned to see his old friend Clara Hastings approaching. Clara had been a constant presence in Jack's life for as long as he could remember. She was the town's doctor, a woman of sharp intellect and even sharper wit. They had grown up together, and though their lives had taken different paths, they had always remained close. "Mind if I join you?" Clara asked, her voice gentle. Jack nodded, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Of course, Clara. What brings you by?" Clara sat down, her gaze following Jack's to the night sky. "I've been hearing stories about you, Jack. People are saying you've changed, that you've got some kind of magic touch now." Jack smiled faintly. "Magic? I don't know about that. Just trying to do what I can to help." Clara turned to look at him, her expression thoughtful. "It's more than that, isn't it? Something happened, something you're not telling me." Jack hesitated, then sighed. If there was anyone he could confide in, it was Clara. She had always been there for him, through thick and thin, and he knew she would understand. "Something did happen," Jack admitted. "Something big. I met someone, or rather someone's. They weren't from around here, Clara. They were from out there." He gestured toward the stars. Clara's eyes widened slightly, but she remained calm. "Aliens?" Jack nodded. "Yeah. They came to me, needed help with their ship. I managed to fix it, and in return they gave me something, an ability, a gift. I can see things differently now, understand things in a way I never could before." Clara listened quietly, her sharp mind processing every word. "That explains the stories. But there's more, isn't there?" Jack took a deep breath. "They offered me a choice, Clara. I can stay here, keep helping people in New Nevada, or I can go with them, explore the stars, see what's out there. Use this gift on a much larger scale." Clara was silent for a moment, her gaze distant. "And what do you want to do, Jack?" Jack shook his head, frustration evident in his voice. "I don't know. I've spent my whole life here. This is my home. These are my people. But at the same time, I've always wondered what's out there. And now I have the chance to find out." Clara nodded, her expression understanding. "It's a big decision, Jack, but you've always been the kind of person who dreams big, who looks beyond what's in front of you. Maybe this is your chance to finally see those dreams come true." Jack looked at her, his heart heavy. "What if I leave, Clara? What happens to everyone here? What happens to us?" Clara smiled softly, reaching out to place a hand on his arm. "New Nevada will be fine, Jack. We've managed this long. We'll keep managing. As for us, well, you know how I feel about you. You're my best friend, and I'll miss you if you go. But I also know that you've got a big heart, and a big part of that heart wants to see what's out there. I can't hold you back from that." Jack felt a lump form in his throat. He had always cared for Clara, more than he had ever admitted, even to himself. But she was right. There was a part of him that needed to see what was beyond the horizon, a part of him that couldn't be satisfied with staying in one place. "Thanks, Clara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Clara replied, squeezing his arm gently. "Whether you stay or go, we'll always be connected, Jack. You've got a good heart, and that won't change no matter where you are." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He still didn't have all the answers, but talking to Clara had helped him see things more clearly. The choice was his, and whatever he decided, he knew he wouldn't be alone. The next morning, Jack awoke with a sense of clarity. He knew what he had to do. He spent the day preparing, putting his affairs in order, and saying his goodbyes to the people of New Nevada. It was harder than he had expected, but there was also a sense of closure, a recognition that he was leaving behind a place that had shaped him into the person he was. As the sun began to set, Jack found himself back in his workshop, the place where it had all started. He looked around at the tools, the machines, the memories that filled the space. This was his sanctuary, his refuge, but it was time to move on. He stepped outside and gazed up at the stars once more, feeling the familiar pull in his chest. It was time. "Lyra," he whispered into the night, his voice steady. "I'm ready." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the night sky began to glow, a soft, pulsing light that grew brighter and brighter. A familiar hum filled the air as the sleek, silver ship descended from the heavens, landing gracefully in the clearing outside the workshop. The door slid open, and Lyra stepped out, her glowing eyes filled with warmth. "Jack," she said, her voice carrying a note of pride, "you've made your decision." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Yeah, I'm ready to go." Lyra smiled and extended her hand. "Then come with us, Jack. The stars are waiting." Jack took a deep breath and reached out, grasping her hand. As he did, he felt a surge of energy, a sense of connection to something far greater than himself. This was his path, his destiny, and he was ready to embrace it. Together, they walked toward the ship, the future stretching out before them like the endless night sky. As Jack stepped inside the ship, he felt a sense of anticipation, of wonder. The interior was just as he remembered, smooth, seamless walls, glowing symbols that floated in the air, and the soft hum of the energy core. But this time, there was no fear, no hesitation, only a deep sense of purpose. The other two alien women were there, waiting, their expressions serene. They nodded to Jack as he entered, acknowledging his choice, his new place among them. Lyra led him to the center of the ship, where a circular platform awaited. "This is the beginning of a new journey, Jack," she said, her voice filled with reverence. "You will see things beyond your wildest dreams, encounter challenges you cannot yet imagine. But you will not be alone. We will be with you every step of the way." Jack stepped onto the platform, feeling a rush of energy as it activated. The ship began to hum with life, the walls shimmering with light as it prepared to take off. Lyra joined him on the platform, her hand still holding his. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice gentle. Jack looked into her glowing eyes, feeling a surge of emotion. "I'm ready." The ship began to rise, lifting off the ground with a smooth, effortless motion. Jack watched as the world he had known his entire life grew smaller and smaller, until it was just a speck in the distance. And then, with a final burst of light, the ship shot forward, leaving New Nevada behind as it soared into the stars. Jack felt a thrill of excitement as the ship accelerated, the stars stretching out before him like a vast, uncharted ocean. This was it, the adventure he had always dreamed of, the journey he had always longed for. As the ship traveled faster and faster, Jack felt a deep sense of peace, of fulfillment. He had made his choice, and now he was free. Free to explore, to learn, to grow. The universe was his to discover, and he was ready to embrace it. Lyra squeezed his hand gently, her voice a soft whisper in his ear. "Welcome to the stars, Jack Monroe. Your journey has just begun." Jack smiled, his heart swelling with joy and anticipation. He was ready for whatever the universe had in store for him, ready to face the challenges and wonders that awaited. And as the ship sped through the cosmos, Jack knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he was meant to be.